Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today we're going to cover another very popular pick in that pro scene meta, top lane Rumble.
Let's get in the fight.
Rumble's a champion with a great early game and high snowball potential. If you're able to grab some early kills and start snowballing, you're going to be able to completely zone people using your harpoons and flame spitter. These abilities are where you get your great harassment, and it makes you a rather strong lane bully. Rumble is then a top laner with rather limited counters. Sure, there's some hard matchups like everybody else has, but you don't have anything really ridiculous like, say, Gangplank before his rework against a Pantheon, or something even more ridiculous like Sion pushing Heimer's turrets, or Nunu just simply eating them. Last, there is your ultimate, and this is what makes you a really strong champion. A properly placed ultimate in a teamfight can do devastating damage and can easily win you the teamfight. Now, unfortunately, that ultimate can be rather hard to land in the open, especially for new Rumbles. It's rather devastating in closed-off areas, but in the open, it's very easy to run out. Then there is the fact that you do have no built-in escape, and if you are getting camped in the top lane, it can kinda suck because you have to be extremely careful. Last, overheat silence can be shit. If you don't manage it properly, your damage is not going to be as high as it could potentially be, and you may get in situations where you would need to ultimate, but too bad, you're silenced. For my Masteries, I like to go 18 Ferocity and 12 Resolve, grabbing Deathfire Touch as my keystone mastery. This is a great way to add some more damage onto your already strong harass and piss off your opponent. I prefer 12 Resolve because you do get a little bit more sustain, and you do reduce that cooldown on your teleport and flash. For people that do prefer 12 Cunning over Resolve, that will also work as well, but I do prefer Resolve myself. For our rune options, we have two different pages. We have the first one, which is the typical one for an AP top laner, and then we also have the one if we are looking to bully them as much as possible. Of course, that one we'd only want to take if we are in a very, very easy matchup. So here is our generic one. We take 9 magic penetration reds, 9 armor yellows, 9 magic resist blues, and 3 ability power quints. Great damage from the ability power and the magic pen, and great tankiness from the armor and magic resist. If you were against an AD top laner, like as in pure AD, you could instead opt for the scaling magic resist instead, as you wouldn't need it in the lane phase. For the second page here, we stick with those ability power quints and magic penetration reds, but instead of the magic resist, we pick up more ability power in our blues and scaling health from our yellows. This, like I said before, is a great way to add some extra damage if you are in a very easy matchup and you want more kill pressure. For my summoner spells, I like to just stick with teleport and flash. Flash is great on Rumble because he doesn't have a built-in escape, and it can save him in so many different situations. You can also use this to flash forward and catch somebody running away using your Electro Harpoon. Teleport is then the meta summoner pick for top laners right now, and usually you just have to grab it because you don't want to be at a teleport disadvantage and have the enemy top laner be able to split push and still make it to team fights and objectives where you don't have that option. Now, of course, you could take Ignite, and it can be decent because it can get you snowballing, but in my opinion at least, it is inferior to teleport. But let's kick off our abilities by looking at our passive, Junkyard Titan. So Rumble gains between 10 and 20 heat every time he uses a basic ability, and loses 10 heat per second after 4 seconds of not using his abilities, which is increased to 20 heat per second 2.5 seconds after. When he then gets to 50 heat or above, his basic abilities are enhanced. Then at 100 heat, he becomes silenced for 6 seconds, but his basic attacks will deal between 25 to 110 based on level, plus 30% AP bonus magic damage for that duration, and his heat will also decay to 0. So managing this is obviously important because we want to be landing our abilities when we're 50 heat or above so we can do more damage. However, we don't want to become silenced too early on and not be able to use our abilities. So what I and pretty much every other Rumble I've seen does is spam your W shield so you do remain at around 30 to 50 heat at most, so when you do go in for trades or team fights or whatever, you will be able to use those enhanced abilities. You have to be very careful, especially in team fights, because if you do want to go for an ultimate at some point, which I hope you will, you don't want to be silenced and have that not be available. So next up is that Q, Flame Spitter, and this is what I'd call your main ability, as it's great for harassing and clearing minion waves, and of course because we max it first. So when you use it, he activates his flamethrower for 3 seconds, dealing magic damage every 0.25 seconds to all enemies in a cone in front of him. So the magic damage there is between 6.25 and 26.25 plus 8.35% AP for every quarter second. If you are in the danger zone, you will deal 50% bonus damage. So since you will get 12 ticks of this ability, it will have a 100% AP ratio normally, but when you are in that danger zone, you will have a 150% AP ratio, which is rather big for a spammable ability. You'll want to be using this to clear up minion waves, but keep in mind, of course, it will be pushing them, so you will want to back in and out to last hit them, and not hit them too much. This ability will also be great when you do get your Rylai's Crystal Scepter, because it will have a perma-slow and you can deal tons of damage, but of course your Electro Harpoons can slow as well. But now, let's look at your W, Scrap Shield. So when you use it, you shield yourself for 2 seconds, and you get bonus movement speed for 1 second. The shield strength has a base of between 50 and 170 plus 40% AP, and the movement speed goes from 10 to 30%. If you are in the danger zone, the shield's effects are increased by 50%. So this is the ability you want to use rather often in the lane because it only has a 6-second cooldown and obviously it costs heat, so that's a great way to get into the danger zone. Stay in that 30 to 50 range so when you want to go into a trade or some sort of team fight, you will be able to use empowered abilities. This of course is a great way of escaping or engaging as well, considering you do get all that movement speed. So now let's look at that E, Electro Harpoon. Passively, you'll store a charge periodically, and you can have a maximum of 2 at one time. When activated, Rumble shoots a harpoon that deals magic damage to the first enemy it hits and slows them for 2 seconds. Charges of this ability that are stored prior to overheating can still be used while you're overheated, and the slow is enhanced if used on the same target. The magic damage is between 45 and 145 plus 40% AP, and the slow is 15 to 35%. If used while in the danger zone, the effects are yet again increased by 50%. So this is your main way of getting onto or sticking onto a target, as it does provide a slow. Use this ability at the beginning of a combo so you can get off your full duration Flame Spitter and deal a ton of damage. Other than that, it is pretty good for last hitting from a large distance if you are in a hard matchup. Of course, it's then also great for harassing the enemy a little bit. Now we're going to cover that last ability, your ultimate, the Equalizer. Rumble calls down a line of rockets down the target path, which remains for 5 seconds and deals magic damage every second to all enemies within the range, and slows them by 35%. The Equalizer can be fired in any direction, in any point, from any point within range. So the magic damage per second is between 130 and 240 plus 30% AP, and if somebody sits in the full thing, it's between 650 and 1200 plus 150% AP. So this ability right here is why Rumble is one of the best top laners there is, and is a very high priority pick in the pro scene at the moment. His ultimate can be so devastating that people sometimes won't even go for dragons or barons, because if Rumble does get off this ultimate on a team that's in that little clumped area, they're going to fucking die. Think about how much damage this ability can actually do on a team, and he goes for a high pen build with a Leandries, which even adds a burn on top of it. Now, the problem is, like I mentioned in the pros and cons page, this is not as effective in an open area where it's easily to walk out. Now, you can help negate this if you were teamed with like a Mumu jungle, for example, who will hold people in an area, and then you can get this on top of it. If used on a team in a clumped up area though, have fun losing that team fight. For our skill order, we of course want to max our ultimate first, as it does do devastating team damage. Then we focus on our Q for its nice harassment and lane bully utility, and our E for poking and last hitting as well. Now last, of course, we do max our W because it's not adding any extra damage, and it's kind of just used for that little mobility and actually gaining some heat. At least early on in the lane anyways. Now whether you want to take that single point at level 2 or 3 is up to you. It kind of depends on the matchup. If you're afraid of poke, then you're going to need it at 2, but if not, take it at 3. So to get into a range where we can use our combo, we'll want to be spamming our Scrap Shield to stay at between 30 and 50 heat. So for our 50 to 55 overheat combo, we start by opening with 2 Electro Harpoons, and we will then be at between 70 and 75 heat. So once they have that increased slow, we will then open with our Flame Spitter and hit between 90 and 95 heat. If we want to use our ultimate, we can then use that next, or we can use our Scrap Shield to go into overheat. Once we are overheated, then we of course start landing auto attacks as they are empowered. So for our 70 to 75 overheat harass, we start with a single Electro Harpoon and follow it up with a Flame Spitter. We can then use our second Electro Harpoon to chase the enemy and get into overheat and start auto-attacking, or to kite away if we just wanted a quick trade. In the early game, usually you're just going to want to focus on farming until level 4 and you have 2 points into your Flame Spitter, and of course you'll have every other ability as well. Because honestly, you are kind of weak until you do have every ability, but once you do, you are quite the lane bully. If you are in a hard matchup, you can use your Electro Harpoon to farm safely from a distance. For the items, you're going to want to make sure you rush a Haunting Guise most of the time, but if you are in a hard AD matchup, then you may need that Seeker's Arm Guard. Make sure you start warding at around 2 minutes 30 seconds, and if you start getting camped, keep up those wards and don't tilt because your team will have an advantage in another lane because of it. If the enemy jungler keeps showing top over and over again, try to get your team to get some free dragons. If you're winning the lane phase, try and focus down the top lane tower as fast as you can and start roaming. Make sure you keep an eye on the minimap for teleport gank opportunities, because you do have rather solid ganks with your equalizer. After lane phase is done, your job in teamfights is to land the perfect equalizer and peel for your carries. Make sure you build lots of magic penetration. The best way to deal a ton of damage on Rumble is to get through any magic resist as early as possible and deal devastating damage with that ultimate. Before a late game teamfight happens, try and poke the enemy laner as much as you can with your Electro Harpoon. When somebody initiates, follow up with the equalizer on the carry backline. If you have no initiator on your team, then you might have to fill this role and use the equalizer to start the team fight. If your team is caught in a bad position and the enemy is trying to engage, make sure you also use the equalizer if it's available so the champions who are able to chase and initiate cannot get to your team. Once you do win a team fight, make sure you follow up with objectives. Do not just settle for that team fight, make sure you take either towers, dragons, or barons. Tryndamere is our first hard matchup, and make sure you don't underestimate his early game damage. At level 2, he'll be able to spin onto you with half a rage bar and take you down to half health in 2 hits if 1 crits. Don't die to this early cheese, and once you hit level 3+, it will get a lot easier. Kite with your Electro Harpoons when he goes in for a spin, and deal damage with Flame Spitter. Riven is another hard matchup, and you're going to want to farm until you're level 3 so you can actually deal with her a little bit. When you hit 4, you're actually going to be able to start out-trading her. When she tries to go for a stun, use your shield and follow up with Electro Harpoon once, and hit her with your Flame Spitter and auto attacks. When she tries to get on top of you with her Qs, you can also use the second Electro Harpoon and kite her. Darius can be a rather hard matchup as well, and you have to make sure you don't get grabbed at all costs. You'll also want to make sure you win the lane before he gets his ultimate. Try to bait out his grab, and if you can, it's very easy to slow and kite him with your Electro Harpoon, and then you can get a lot of damage on him with your Flame Spitter. Now let's finish off this guide with the item build, which starts with a Doran's Shield, Health Potion, and Warding Totem. If you are in a very hard AD matchup, you also have the option of starting with Cloth and a bunch of pots. For our core build, we'll want to get Leandries, Sork Boots, Rylai's Crystal Scepter, and a Void Staff. This will give you an absolute ton of magic penetration, a decent health pool, and slows. For the item pool, we of course got the Zhonya's first, as it's a very good defensive item, and it does have a nice amount of armor on it as well, making it great against high AD teams. If we are against AP teams, we of course also have the Abyssal. Also, a great way to pick up 10% CDR. Next, of course, is the Rabadons, and we want to grab this if we are looking for a mass AP build, which usually we are. These next 2 items I'm not a huge fan of, but I do see Rumbles take them from time to time. The Luden's Echo and the Hextech Protobelt. Luden's Echo is okay if you are looking to be a little bit burstier, and Protobelt will add a little bit more mobility. As always, Guardian Angel is a great option as well if we are in that ultra late game and we do need to come back to life if we do get caught out. So for the first full build here, we of course take our core, add a Rabadons for mass AP, and a Zhonya's for that awesome stasis and the armor it provides. For full build number 2, we instead get that Abyssal because obviously it's got magic resist, and we still get the Rabadons because doing a ton of damage with our ultimate is a great way to win a team fight. But that covers everything I've got to say on Top Lane Rumble. If you guys did enjoy the guide, you could always thumb it up, and if you really liked it or you are new, you can subscribe as well. If you're looking for other guides, make sure you visit our website, egamingtv.com, as it has a really good list of the guides on there. As always, you can also follow us on Twitter at egaming_TV, which is where we do skin giveaways, so if you're interested in those, please follow us over there. But anyways, thank you guys a ton for watching, and I will see you guys in the next champion guide. Peace!
Strap, pop, hottest black top.
in that black top, eyes flutter as your back lock, grip tight on your hips like a padlock. Is the padlock? I don't know. I had strings of bad luck. Clear the bed before we crush your laptop. Come on, beg, come on, say my name like they do at shows. Only difference.